Support comes from the Wiregrass Archives at Troy University's Dothan campus, identifying and preserving historical documents and photographs for research related to the Wiregrass region. More information at troy.edu/wiregrassarchives.
From Troy Public Radio, this is TPR Podcast Presents. Programming made where you live. I'm Austin Toy. Every week, we bring you selections from one of Troy Public Radio's 17 locally produced podcasts. For 26 years, the Rosa Parks Museum has stood on the very street corner where Mrs. Parks was arrested. In that time, thousands of guests from all 50 states and more than 100 countries have come to learn the story of Rosa Parks and see the spot where she made history. Today, the man behind the museum shares his story. Ray White was instrumental in making the museum a reality. And as he told Rich Leday and Wendy Broyles on the Culture and Belonging podcast, making a museum from scratch isn't exactly easy.
I'll take you back, if I could, to the beginning of the idea. How do you build a museum without anything to put in it? Right. That was my task. I had nothing to put in a museum. Honestly, white people didn't trust us at that time because they were saying things like, what is Troy University trying to do? Make white people look bad for the way we treated black people. And then black people didn't trust us because they were skeptical. What is this, quote, white university, even though we're highly integrated, one of the most integrated in Alabama universities as it relates to black and white. But the feeling was, what is Troy University trying to do telling the black story? Now, you can see I was kind of tugging. Nobody wanted to give us anything for those reasons. And so we had to set out and figure out how we're going to build a museum without anything. Even the Parks people up in Detroit didn't give us anything that belonged to Mrs. Parks.
Wow.
Now, we have some things now, but we didn't have then. So getting to your point, Rich, we didn't think about what does it mean now at that time. We were just trying to survive and figure out how to open a museum.
Right.
So we knew it was an important site, and we knew that we wanted to tell the story properly. So what we decided to do is bring in the best historians, African-American historians, which we did, and we hired one of the best civil rights museum designers out of St. Louis, Missouri, Eistroholt and Associates, to design an interpretive museum. In other words, let Troy University not tell the story. Let's let the historical documents, which I found in the bottom of the police department, that's what's on display throughout the museum now, and let's do a complete reenactment of what happened. That's the bus story that we do. And then finally, let's let the people who participated in the Montgomery bus boycott tell their own story.
Right.
So we went out and did video interviews of everyone, and that's what you get through the museum. So people go through the museum, they can then interpret history for themselves. Mm-hmm. Don't let Troy University tell them what to think. And so that's what it means today is people can go through the museum and everybody comes out with a different interpretation of it. And they also come out with a different thought about what is it, how will it impact my life now, and how will it impact the way I treat other cultures, other people, other societies, other countries, as well as states, individuals. Because as we talk about culture, for example, everybody that comes through the museum come from different cultures.
Right.
I mean, many different cultures. And then, interestingly to me, we've had over 10,000 that, I stopped counting, by the way, we've had over 10,000 written comments of the visitors on how it impacted them. And honestly, and I've looked, I've never found a negative comment.
Wow.
That's impressive.
And so oftentimes when I brief people, boards and so forth, such as you, I share with them what some of the adults said, and I also share with them what some of the children said. And it's amazing what some of these little children, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, will say. I even brought some with me if you want me to share a few of them.
Yes.
But this was a 13-year-old comment. Love how I got absorbed in it from Stone Mountain, Georgia. This one was a 10-year-old from Wales, United Kingdom. I cried, and so did my mom. Here's one from Dallas, Texas, an 8-year-old. Rosa Parks, you're a good mother. I love you.
Wow.
I mean, these are just children, awesome from a 6-year-old in Atlantic City. I especially love this one from a 12-year-old. We love this museum better than school. Whitefish, Montana.
Oh, that's funny.
And then here's one where it shows the learning part of it. We love this museum. I plan to write my English paper on my visit, a 13-year-old, again from Whitefish, Montana.
That's cool.
And a couple from adults, for example, brought back to life a sad period in humanity. Excellent presentation, Ontario, Canada. Thanks so much. It really touched my soul. Bern, Switzerland. These are comments that out of the 10,000, these are just a few that I have pulled out. And I didn't just try to look over any negative ones. They just simply weren't there.
Wow. Yeah.
And the museum touches, as you can see from just those few comments, everybody's different. And everybody sees it different, interprets it different. But almost everybody says it can show you how we can all get together regardless of where we come from, regardless of our culture or our language or whatever. And last thing I'll say about related to Rosa Parks Museum, you go through the whole experience. And my granddaughters, one time when I took them very small when I first started opening the museum, my granddaughters came back up to me and said, Papa, why did white people treat black people that way? Because they didn't have that concept, because I didn't teach them to treat black people that way. So they didn't comprehend a lot of what they were getting through the museum, or watching what white people were doing to black people back in the segregation days and so forth. So then I had another experience on the opposite end with a very senior black gentleman, and he was with a senior citizens group in the museum, and we'd gotten through the whole thing. And I said, it takes generations to change attitudes. You can't change attitudes overnight. You can't change behaviors overnight. I said, sometimes it's impossible to change attitudes. People have to want to change the attitudes. A black gentleman raised his hand. He said, may I make a comment? He said, today I feel uncomfortable. This was probably in 2008, 2009 when this happened. So long after the civil rights laws and Civil Rights Act had passed, he said, today I feel uncomfortable drinking out of a water fountain I see a white person drink out of. I still feel uncomfortable eating in a restaurant beside a white person. I still feel uncomfortable staying in a hotel where white people predominantly stay. He said, I know I can do it legally, but the tapes are still playing.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, what a great explanation of changing. You can't change attitudes. You can't change the tapes. He came through segregation years. Those tapes will go with him till he dies dies in the bed or wherever. Just like me, I treated black people wrong. When I worked in a restaurant, I was taught you have to tell black people they can't come in the front door and sit in a restaurant. They had to go out to the dishwasher door and get their food to go. Those tapes are still playing the way I treated black people. But in the Air Force days and the way I feel today, I can change my behavior based on those tapes and based on what I've learned. So all I'm getting at is I can't change the tapes, but I can certainly change my behavior.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can hear the full conversation with Ray White on the Culture and Belonging podcast, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Austin Toy, and this is TPR Podcast Presents on listener-supported Troy Public Radio.